All right. Let's see. Get a map up on the screen. Joe Rayo is here. And we can get going. So I guess it's an 8:40 start.
I'm so glad we had
At this
this
time
time
together.
together.
I don't know what that
Just
was,
to
Joe.
have a laugh at.
I don't know what that was. I got all of a sudden, I got this blue screen that came up that said, uh, we've encountered an error, so we need to restart your computer. Like, really? I've been gone all day, and I just got back at 8 o'clock. Now it decided to do that. Anyway, we're here.
Oh, dear.
They can hear us. I know there's probably a little bit of a lag, but just give it a moment. It will all be good. So anyway, let's get to this. So we've got this lovely winter storm that is underway. So I will put the watches and warnings map up, and I'm going to let you talk a while because I got to load some maps. So you talk.
Well, the CBS Evening News tonight led off with, "Oh, here's the headline for tonight. There's a big snowstorm hitting Minnesota." And I'm looking at the TV screen and I'm watching them talk about the snow and the wind and the cold or whatever. And I go like this to my television. I'm saying, "Hey, CBS, just in case you haven't looked at the calendar, it's February. And oh, by
Yes.
the way, it's Minnesota." So you're leading off with something that we all know happens at this time of the year in the upper plain states, which is cold and snow. But of course, they have to make it sound like it has never snowed before. It has never gotten cold before. It's the end of the world. And the first 5 minutes of the news was telling us, that it's cold and it's snowy and it may get 20 inches in Minneapolis. And I looked at Renata and I said, "Well, I see Gordy the weatherman just dropped in to say hello.
Yes.
He's going to tell us all about what makes it snow
He
right after this next
certainly did.
commercial."
Yeah. Oh my
Um,
God. This is horrible, isn't it? The world we
uh,
live in. Everything
yes,
everything is an apocalypse, as we know.
everything.
Everything
This
is
is,
everything is an apocalypse. Uh, we've got
and I
the
remember, I remember in the aftermath of the '78 blizzard here in the Northeast that we actually had to wait until about 10 minutes into the evening news on CBS for Cronkite to come on and say, "The Northeast was hit by yet another storm." And I mean, 10 minutes into the show, if that had happened this year or tonight, the whole friggin' Eastern evening news would have been all about that storm. There's something that happened sometime between 1978 and now that has suddenly caused, executive producers and news directors, I think, to say, "It's a snowstorm. Bump it up, bump it, put it at the top of the news." So there you go.
I know.
Oh, look at that!
It's
Look at
nuts.
look, look at that! Look at that! Is that the percentage in red? Is that the percentages for 2 inches or more?
I believe so. It's this probability of at least four. This is the probability of at least four.
Yeah.
This is the legacy page of WPC. So you can see where all the big snows. Now there's a lot of these spots back in the plains. They've already put down most of the snow that they've put down. They're getting some more, and then it'll come to an end shortly. Uh, Big time issues. This is, by the way, this is just for Thursday, for tonight into tomorrow night on this map. This goes one day at a time, which is, maybe we'll start using this one instead. We need all winter to do it. But notice big snows in California in the coastal range. We've got big snows in Oregon in the coastal range. Back over into Arizona, 4 inches or more. Here's day two, which is Friday into Saturday, and you're looking at the Sierra Nevadas and again in northwestern California and scattered around in the southwest. And up in Maine, there's a high probability of at least four in Maine. There's breaking news there. Saturday, this is Friday night into Saturday night, still going on into California. Blizzard warnings up in parts of Southern California in the mountains to the east of Los Angeles, by the way. Here's day four. And you see the probability of this is now the day 4 probabilities are for at least a few inches. And while this was a little bit of a surprise to me, but maybe it's a sign of hope. I don't know. Day 4 is Saturday into Sunday. Day 5 is Sunday into Monday. The blue is 50 to 70%. The light blue 70 to 90. Look at day 6, folks. They've got the 30 to 50% line into northwest New Jersey, northeast PA, the lower Hudson Valley, Connecticut, 10 to 30 down to central New Jersey to the Pennsylvania-Maryland border. We'll see. And 50 to 70% further north up in New York State and in Vermont, New Hampshire, western Massachusetts, and southwestern Maine. And day 7, it shifts up a little bit more into New England, where you've got that 10 to 30 still. This is Tuesday into Wednesday. That crash has kind of thrown me off, but we'll get into this with the maps. Here's a satellite tonight. Joe, the way this is all set up, the precip that occurred. Well, there's two things about it. I got messages from folks laughing because of the fact that they had temperatures in the low 40s and then we're seeing snowflakes out of this and ice pellets. One of my guys was actually saying his temperature was 45 where he's getting sleet. You mentioned last night it's cold aloft, but the low-level cold air is non-existent. But just about all the precip's done when I look at the radar.
For all of you snow lovers out there, I did all of you a big oh no.
What?
For a moment I saw the spinning wheel of death once again.
Okay. There must be something going on with my broadband. But anyway, we'll carry it along as far as it can go.
Well, I did all of you a favor out there, all of you who have been begging for snow. On my Facebook pages tonight, I commented, and maybe you saw it, Joe, maybe you didn't. I put a picture of my snowblower on Facebook, and I wrote, I just want to take a moment here to apologize to my snow shovels and especially my snowblower. In October, I spent good money on getting you tuned up and got you all primed and ready for a busy season. Oh my, oh my, oh my. How was I wrong? You've been there for me in the past, but this year it's been different. Incredibly, on the 22nd day of February, George Washington's birthday, I might also add, I haven't needed you at all. Maybe we still have a shot at a big snowfall, and at this point in time, I wouldn't be surprised if it came in April. But don't worry, I promise to make it up to you next winter. Hang in there. We will be together again soon. And as soon as I put this on Facebook, I said to myself, now the drought is going to end. Now we're finally going to get a major snowfall or a snow big enough for me to finally use that contraption, maybe within the next week. And now everybody is talking about events coming up downrange and the potential of something. You just pointed it out, Joe. So maybe by posting that commentary, my apologies to my snowblower, maybe, just maybe, we might actually finally see a significant snowfall.
Well, look, I'm going to just warn everybody that it is wise and very wise to be cautious with whatever the models are throwing out there because of the way the winter is gone. There's a few things that are going on that are eerily similar to when the models were doing this back in January, and we know how those turned out. So don't count your chickens yet. Let me just acknowledge Trish Sparaccio hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you. Jason Kaplan just hit Super Chat tonight saying, hoping we get at least one snowstorm somehow in the next 4 weeks. Somehow. Well, look, if we go into this blocky pattern, then maybe we have a chance. I don't know. It's hard to imagine that we're going to suddenly go into some super snow pattern, given the way the winter's gone. Look at the precip. I mean, it's really done.
Don't forget also David Fuller, who also.
Oh, David Fuller. Yes, I'm sorry. David Fuller is going to get 70 degrees tomorrow in Monmouth County. So he's happy. There's the the warm front's trying to push northward. All the precip is north of New York City, eastern Long Island, and then up into southeastern New England, back across upstate New York. There's some heavier precip just moving through Binghamton right now, and heading to near or just north of the Catskills. And what's the matter? What's going on?
I'm just I'm just reading. I never did this before. How many years have we been doing this show? 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, something like that.
I never used to go, and I never went on Twitter to read Judah Cohen's latest latest messages. He posted this 3 hours ago. Joe, you ready for this?
Go ahead.
European 12Z run predicts historical snowstorm for the northeastern U.S. So, of course, naturally, the GFS 18Z, aka Happy Hour pun run, just said to the European, "Hold my beer." At least the pub at least the pub run has company for once.
Well, the GFS also, I think, a 12Z showed some big snow amounts, as per pivotal weather on the snowfall forecast map.
Yeah, but I guess he refers to the 18Z GFS as the quote Happy Hour pun run.
Yes, I know that is a good description of it all. Where are we now? WPC back just to show the liquid precip amounts over the next 7 days. Quite a bit, inch and a half or more. Now, obviously, a lot of this is going on now of liquid from Iowa, but there are other systems waiting in the wings here. From Iowa eastward across Michigan, upstate New York, some 2-inch plus amounts of liquid, and over into southeastern New England and Maine. You got the 3/4 of an inch to an inch line down to about central New Jersey. The Ohio Valley, half to 3/4 of an inch there. Look at the West Coast, though, especially in California. I mean, we're talking about many inches of rain here near where it's raining, because just inland of there, we're talking snow in the mountains north and west of LA. I mean, I was reading some of the forecasts, and they sort of read like the ones that we usually see up in Washington and Oregon and the Cascades, where they have winter weather advisories for 18 to 24 for a
Right.
for a 12-hour period. And here we're talking, they had multiple periods where they were going like 12 to 18, 12 to 18, added up, and you're talking about 40 or 50 inches. Mount Wilson was one spot that looked like it was going to get hit pretty hard. I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage here because I always have these maps preloaded and ready to go, so I'm having to call them up one by one, which is a bit of a pain. Let me just go back to the watches and warnings map. So you got the winter storm warnings up in northern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, into Maine. Advisories down into northern Connecticut. I guess if they're going to get some icing, I didn't really notice that the temperatures were even that cold there. I'm going to just take a look at Boston, see what's going on some of the obs. It's 37 with light snow in Boston. It's not sticking there. Light snow at Beverly, light snow at Bedford, light sleet in New Bedford, cloudy in Hyena, Provincetown mostly cloudy, light rain in Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard. Nobody's got visibilities here, so we're talking about really light stuff. Worcester, Fitchburg, Orange, Springfield. I mean, temperatures are like 32, 31 in those areas. Springfield, Westfield, North Adams, Pittsfield, all doing it. Providence, light rain in 37. Newport, light rain, light snow in Smithfield and Rhode Island and Connecticut. Sleet at Bradley. Hartford is 36. Bradley is at 35. I mean, how much icing are they going to get? I can't imagine they're going to get much in the way of icing tonight with the temperatures the way they are.
No, yeah, and when we talk about the possibility, the executive producer said no maps.
No maps. All right, hang on. No, well, don't worry about it. I don't have. This is in the map, so don't worry about it. I'm reading.
I agree with you, Tom.
I'm reading the obs out loud.
Right. So that's why there's no maps. And Tom Contino, I heard a ping earlier. I heard a ping too, Tom, but it's all in our heads.
6 minutes to Hannity, Tom Contino. 6 minutes, you know. You got just enough time to squeeze a little bit more weather and do a bathroom run. God. He actually posted that message. He says, the late start is, getting in the way of Hannity that starts at 9 o'clock. Well, what can I tell you? Here we
Well,
go.
Hannity doesn't tell anybody Hannity knows one thing in his head, and then he tells everybody something else completely.
Yes,
It's all
exactly.
it's all in the big report that just came out, but I'm not
Yes.
getting into that.
No, let's not get into that. So
No.
winter storm warnings around the lakes. Blizzard warnings continue in western Minnesota, eastern South and South Dakota, southeastern North Dakota. Blizzard warnings still going on in central Wyoming. Lots of winter storm warnings in Wyoming and Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, uh, Arizona. Then you go to California, and you got a whole slew of blizzard warnings and winter storm warnings in California. I'm going to just punch up this one spot. Let's go to LA. So they've got blizzard warnings up. And you can see it. It's not that far. If you've never been to California, you don't have to go very far inland. You can see the mountains pretty much from LA on a clear day. And yeah, the cold air is getting all the way south into some of these places. I was going to take a random spot in here where we've got the blizzard warning up. This is Ozena, California. Okay, so a lot depends on what elevation I pick. So this is 3,690 feet. So they're going for less than an inch tonight, less than a half inch tonight, less than an inch tomorrow, 6 to 10 Thursday night, 12 to 18 Friday, 9 to 13 Friday night, and 2 to 4 on Saturday. So that's, let's see, 11 to 17.
I've never seen the whole row in red. You know,
23 to 35. Yes, 29 to 50, 29 to 45 inches is what they're forecasting for in total. This particular spot in the mountains there in Southern California. I mean, that's impressive. That's impressive.
indeed,
And
indeed.
yeah, and not too much. Friday they got snow with a south wind at 40 to 45, gusting to 65. That would be something to see.
Indeed.
All right,
it would be like that snowstorm that you had on eastern Long Island. What, about 8 years ago?
Yeah, the 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is my all-time favorite.
The 10th anniversary coming up. We ought to do something about that, Joe.
The 10th anniversary has passed.
The 10th anniversary has passed, Joe.
Yeah.
We should have done something about that.
Right, so they're going 2 to 5 inches for the coast and valleys in rain, 2 to 5 inches. Peak rates of a half to 3/4 of an inch an hour. Flood watches in effect from Santa Barbara to Los Angeles, Thursday night to Saturday evening. The heaviest snows above 4,500 feet, Joe, 2 to 5 feet up to 7 feet. 2,500 to 4,000 feet, 6 to 12. 1,500 to 2,500 feet, 1 to 6. Very, very interesting. I have no idea about the topography out. I mean, I was out to California once in my life. I really am not familiar with the local climate and how it all works, but it would be fascinating to experience it at some point in my shortening life. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And take a look at the surface maps. Look at these. Look at this. You got easterly isobars pretty much from northern New England and New York State across all of the Great Lakes, all through the plains, all the way back up to the northwest. It's just like it's one giant stretch of northeast winds. And this is bitter cold air that's come down. This Arctic air that's pushed down. It's below zero now in much of Nebraska. It's in the teens in Kansas. Hasn't quite really reached the core. The cold air is really just kind of pushed down into northern Oklahoma where it's dropped down to the low 40s. But I mean, this is really bitter stuff that's here. that has set up this whole snowstorm. All this cold high just pressing down, and it's been building now. It's a 1046 high, still up in northwest Canada, and it's just pressing down and building. Meanwhile, the low itself, you've got multiple low centers that are being analyzed, from one in Colorado, one in North Texas, another one up in northern Missouri, and still another one into Illinois. And you've got this snaky warm front, southern Ohio, and then just kind of hairpins down in Virginia. It's where if you go to the south of that, in the southeast at 7 o'clock this evening, everybody was in the, we were still in the mid to upper 70s at 7 o'clock this evening on February 22nd, which for down here, that's pretty unusual to be this warm.
Well, what's the record? Have you ever hit 90 that down your way this late?
The record at Atlanta, I think, is close to 80.
Right.
All right. You know what? Let's get to the guidance here. Oh, fine. Oh, here we go. All right. So I'm gonna put up the upper air. And it's getting to be a little more apparent, Joe, that we were talking about yet last night about this whole thing with the polar vortex disruption in the stratosphere, and I quoted I quoted one of the folks I follow on Facebook, whose name Dr. Amy. God, my brain is just a mess tonight. Anyway. I'll figure out her name in a minute, but she posted that when it comes to these disruptions in the stratosphere, that they lead to disruptions in the lower atmosphere 70% of the time, and I suggested that, well, you know what, this could be one of those years where we're in the 30% zone, where you get all this stuff going on and nothing winds up happening in the lower atmosphere. But it's starting to look, when I look at what's being shown on the upper air, it does get blocky. I mean, you've got this blocking high. I mean, we're not even looking that far into the future here. We're talking about Sunday. You can see the pushing higher pressures from Iceland starting to push into Greenland. And the thing is, two things have to happen. You got to get the block to kind of push a little bit more across Greenland, which it seems to want to do, and into the Davis Strait. The other thing is, we got to get some kind of a vortex at the mid-levels of the atmosphere. We have to get some kind of a vortex to set up somewhere in eastern Canada or out toward near Newfoundland, because absent of that, what would happen is that your troughs would still keep dropping in the west, and you would have Amy Butler. Thank you. I thought it was Amy Butler. Thank you, Tom. You made up for the Hannity stuff. Because if you don't get that, if you don't get that vortex in southeastern Canada, then you're going to get the ridge. The southeast ridge is going to pop up and fly up, right up the coast again. So it seems on these recent runs that here's where on the 18Z run you got a little bit of a vortex there near Newfoundland, but not enough, and then it just pulls out. It pulls out, and then another little one gets in there. And gets out southeast of Newfoundland. But you see how the southeast ridge just wants to pop up right in between.
It's been doing that for the whole friggin' winter.
Right. Now, I know you don't like the 18Z, so we'll go back to the 12Z. Now, the 12Z was much better. I mean, the 12Z was very encouraging, because as each one of these vortices pulls out, another one comes right away to replace it. So the ridge doesn't have much time to pop up and put an end to all this. So this is one early next week that's suddenly sitting near James Bay. And as that starts to lift out, there's another one that replaces it. And then there's this thing that comes out of the southwest, this sort of wrapped up cutoff low that runs across Virginia and off the New Jersey coast around the weekend of March 4th and March 4th and 5th. And you see how big that block is. So then that goes out, and then suddenly another one appears around the 7th and cuts off and drops out. And, again, this has a much more encouraging look, let's call it. with regards to what might happen down the road. But I would emphasize again, uh, we've been down this road before, and I could think of that one instance in January where the European made that gigantic 950 something low that took it out near 50 and 50, and then energy coming in behind it produced this big snowstorm on the map with 1 to 2 feet everywhere, and of course it was BS, and none of the other models had it. So there was no support. There was the only one doing it, and then sure enough, it was wrong. Everybody likes to look at the Europeans. Well, the European, the European did it. Well, the European did it. Well, it didn't work. And the Europeans' upper air also is probably a little bit more supported. But again, look at that southeast ridge. Just still wants to pop up in there. So we got to get some sort of vortex into southeastern Canada somewhere in order to keep that ridge from popping up.
The European, I've said this before, the European has been living off of that Hurricane Sandy forecast now going on more than 10 years. I mean, ever since then, everybody said, what did the Europeans say? What did the Europeans say? As if the European was God. And over the last 10 or 11 years, there have been not a few cases where the European has fallen flat on its face. So just because the European says something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. I don't care if it's 3 days out or 9 days out. All these models, they just got to. One day, Joe, like maybe 100 years from now, we'll have none of these models. We'll have what's called the universal model, and we'll just be looking at one model giving us these forecasts.
Right, and it'll be so good that you won't even need anybody. The model will just be able to put out its own forecast.
Exactly. Exactly.
So again, we'll just have to see, how strong is this block going to be? How is it going to set up? Where is it going to set up? You can have all the blocking in the world, but if the troughs and ridges are not where they're supposed to be, you'll be sitting around just twiddling your thumbs. And now my mouse is being evil. Come on, this is one weird night tonight. It really is. All right, so let's go back to the GFS and just look at what it's doing at the surface. I'll use the 12Z run. Makes Joe happy when I use the 12Z run. There's that nice little cutoff in West Virginia, and bring up. This is next Saturday, and it's been doing this a few runs in a row. So expect to see more variations here. So here we have today's system. Of course, that finally goes out. Tomorrow's going to be that crazy day with temperatures where north and east of New York City it'll be in the 40s. Central New Jersey, southward, it'll be in the 70s. Then gets colder. We get a quick cold shot again Friday night into Saturday. Saturday's going to be one of the colder days we've had this month, only to bounce out on Sunday. I don't see any precip really. I kind of left precip out for the weekend. Some sort of weak system on Sunday in the afternoon, but that doesn't really look like it's going to produce much. I threw in the chance that maybe there could be a shower. And then another low goes to the lakes on the GFS anyway. Another big low, a 78 low on Monday. And we get into some rain with that and snow up in northern New England. The European was a little different. The European's got a low that's further south and a little bit colder. And that goes out. Now suddenly you start to get the block in play. So you start to see some colder air spreading across southern Canada and the lakes. And this is where you finally have, something coming out with some type, some low-level cold air that gets down into Virginia, and you take a low into eastern Kentucky, and then if the block is strong enough, it's going to force the low to go almost straight east, and that's why this particular run gave mega snow amounts here on the GFS for this storm next weekend, and then that goes away. We're left on the cold side of normal. Then start taking lows again back to the lake. So who knows at that point where what the block's going to look like and how everything else is.
I mean, that's a textbook pattern. Back up to 12Z Sunday, March 4th.
Okay, there you go.
And when you look for
you mean 12Z Saturday. March 4th.
Well, it'll be Saturday, March 4th. Yeah. And if you do that, and if you do that, there it is. There's the classic setup.
Yeah.
Eastern Canada, 10:30, cold, high pressure, ridging down through New England, and you've got the storm. Now, the question will be, and I'm sure it's much too early in the game to ask the models to do this, but the question is, does that storm that's in Kentucky transfer its energy to a second system off the mid-Atlantic coast to cut off any warm air advection?
Which the GFS says yes, it does.
It does. Yeah. It does. So, all I'm saying is that from the start of the winter season up until now, we've seen nothing remotely suggesting any kind of but this, if you want to play the game now, and it's still about 8 or 9 days down the road, and I've often said, don't trust anything 9 days down the road because ultimately it changes. And no, Tom Condino, I'm not buying the snow threat on March 4th just yet. Because, again, things change.
How can you?
How can you?
With the kind of winter we've had, once again, by the way, just to point out, we're talking.
The block will break down. The block will break down somehow, and the damn storm will go up to Detroit or Chicago, and we'll end up with, once again, a flow of southerly winds,
right,
and a brief shot of snow going to rain.
And this happens, and this has happened this happens almost every day. The GFS. I don't know why this is the case. Today it's at the 240 to 258, 264 hour time frame. It's been putting storms in that time frame at least once or twice a day, every day for weeks now. And not a single one of them has come to pass. None. None. And you have to be suspect with anytime we get into these patterns where the block is becoming part of the equation. You're right, Joe. The GFS in particular likes to develop these strong blocks in the long range, only to have the blocks be much weaker and maybe in a different position by the time we get to real time. And who's to say that's if you look at the way the winter has gone, you would have to almost reflexively bet on the fact that that is what will happen, that you're going to wind up with a weaker block or a block that never builds down far enough west, and then you wind up taking some kind of low that goes up the west side of the Appalachians. Don't bet against it because this is the history of this winter.
I love Tyler Fenga on the chat board. I've a brand new. This is something I've never heard of before, Joe. Honest, it is better to get a major storm of 10 to 20 inches all at once than to get dinkers and dunkers with 2 inches here and 3 inches there. Never heard of that term before. Dinkers and dunkers. We've had very few dinkers this winter, and we haven't had one dunker yet. So.
Yeah, I know. And the thing about the 18Z is because the block doesn't look like it's as pronounced. Just for the sake, here it is on the 18Z. There's your low. It actually goes a little bit further to the south. It's got a slightly flatter look to it. I mean, it's still there, and there you go. I mean, even the 18Z has something. It's actually a little bit faster because this actually suggests next Friday night into Saturday morning, where you'd get your snow and then it gets out of the way. I almost would prefer it because this look is a little less developed. And look at the high. Instead of a 1030 plus high, it's a 1021. So right there, you don't have. You have a cold high to the north, but it's a little less robust. But you also have a flatter low that's coming out. So look, at least there's something still here, and we can hold our hopes that tomorrow, when we look at these maps, that that all this stuff is still in play.
Well, you know what? It's 9:15.
Yes.
Much later than what we ever usually are on to.
And I have to, I just want to apologize to everybody. This is, that crash at the beginning of the show really just threw me completely off. This has got to be one of the sloppiest shows that I've done in a long time. So
we're not going to.
I
We're not going to
apologize for that.
we're not going to submit this for a possible Emmy.
No, I don't think so. So look, well, let's save Briller Jeopardy for tomorrow because I still have to put I washed my sheets before I left. Um, this is a February. You should wash your sheets in a February in a non-leap year, which means that next year's a leap year, right? 24.
I think so. Is
Yeah,
it a leap year?
yeah.
Yeah, 2024.
So that means next year I don't wash the sheets because it's a leap year. So come back to me in 2 years. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Josh hit super chat. Thank you, Josh. And Brandon Doherty just hit super chat tonight. Thank you so much. And again, my apologies for the sloppy show. And let's do this the right way tomorrow night at 7:35 Eastern Time, which is a bit more of a civilized time.
I agree.
Okay?
I agree. And you've been driving all day anyway, so.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, God, yes. So we'll see you all tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.